Really interesting story over there on the Tennessee Star, our friend Michael Patrick Leahy. One of the things that they're talking about is how incredibly passionate the left is over trying to flip the 7th Congressional District. And so we are, and I spent some time talking about, and you heard Jay play some of that audio from Aftyn Behn, who is running as the Democrat, as she refuses to give a position on whether or not she would defund the police. You know what I wonder? I wonder if the Democrats are okay with basically lying or obfuscating or not telling people how she feels about certain issues because they know that they might be unpopular. So they're like, you know what, don't bother to answer the queries of where you stand on a position that you believe would be uncomfortable for some, where if you come out and you say, absolutely, I'm for defunding the police, don't actually admit that, because in a dead red state like Tennessee, outside of the, metros like Memphis and Nashville, that is going to prove to be incredibly unpopular. So they may just be playing a game, which is, you know what, don't bother to say anything about how you feel about defunding the police, because it would only be to your detriment. And then once you get into Congress, Lord help us, if you win the 7th Congressional District, then you can do all the kooky things that you want to do. Aftyn Behn, AOC, you're going to have Ilhan Omar. That's the way, that's the level of nuttiness that Aftyn Behn is. By the way, I do have more Aftyn Behn audio. I opened up the show talking about how insane she is. And so I played you audio. If you missed it, go back and look at the 5 o'clock hour. But I played audio and video of her storming into Governor Lee's office, and they pulled her out. Very, very, I thought it was funny. Other people horrified. I actually thought that it was funny. But apparently, according to Michael Patrick Leahy, there are all kinds of leftist activists coming into the state of Tennessee to try to flip the 7th. Which is why it is so important for the people in the 7th, if you are conservative-minded, to go out and vote for Matt Van Epps. If you don't support Matt Van Epps and you support Aftyn Behn, well, you're okay to stay home. Yeah. All right, there's some more video and audio that I want to play. I do find this interesting because there's one where she talks about how to do in-home abortions. Now, this was all during the abortion fight, Roe versus Wade, and it going back down to the states and all that. This is part of what she said. I find this abhorrent.
So what this does not mean for Tennessee is that groups on the ground will continue to provide training in terms of self-managed abortions. And so instead of going to a doctor, because we won't have any doctors that provide abortions, how do you do it at home? We will continue to support reproductive justice organizations and grassroots movements. And we'll continue to figure out how to get abortion pills to people. So the organizing does not stop just because Roe is overturned.
So there you go. I mean, to me, she was an abortion activist, a pro-choice activist. I mean, that was one of the things that she was incredibly passionate about. But here's the funny thing, is that one of the things that she has been saying online is, the Republicans are attacking me. And I guess my question would be, number one, that is part of what politics is, which is defining your opponent. But what is happening is that she is being defined by her own words. I mean, listen, she's the one that said that she hates Nashville. She's the one that said that she hates country music and so on and so forth. And then she gets on and she's, the Republicans are attacking me. Well, nobody's making anything up, though. That's the thing. I also thought this was interesting. I've got all this that I want to play for you. Remember that she was an activist. And so a few years ago, she was dragged out of the state legislature kicking and screaming. Watch this. Listen to this. This was Aftyn Behn in the state legislature. They're pulling her by both arms out of the state capitol. She's up in the balcony.
You shouldn't do that! up there.
And off she goes. Aftyn Behn. So, yeah, I mean, clearly, obviously, she is an activist by nature. And I truly hope that the American people understand that, and certainly, obviously, people in the seventh, but the American people understand what she is all about and how she is clearly unhinged.
The really funny part about the TN Holler that posted that, is they post it like it's a battle cry, like it's something positive to rally behind.
And that goes back to what I've been saying about Aftyn Behn, which is as abhorrent as I find, in-home abortion procedures or whatever she was talking about, in-home abortions and all that. I find it abhorrent, but the left thinks that is great. Storming into Governor Lee's office at the state capitol, being dragged out by security as she is, very, I think a lot of politics. What did you call it earlier?
Theater,
political theater, where she is just crying top of her lungs, and because she was dragged out of Governor Lee's office. This is what she is clearly known for. I think I've got one more video here of Aftyn Behn.
In the wake of the Covenant shooting and the disclosure that the Covenant shooter was trans, I was pulled into a chat with other trans organizers and activists across the state that were fearful.
The audio is not very good, but basically this is after the Covenant shooting, and her reaction, Aftyn Behn's reaction to the Covenant shooting, was that she was going to do everything she could to protect trans rights. 6 people were killed, including 3 children at Covenant. And her reaction is that she needs to protect trans rights as a member of the state legislature.
Of their lives. We identified threats from white-wing groups that they would show up at these Trans Day of Visibility events and threatening our trans kids. And so I had a snapped moment where I decided we need more people talking about the protections for trans kids in our trans communities at the legislature every day. Every legislative session, I promised to carry a trans Bill of Rights so that we could push back against the far-right narrative that is being emanated by Matt Walsh and the Daily Wire, who have set up their home in Nashville. And I promised to do that. I promised to fight for our trans community.
Golf clap. There you go.
It's okay.
It's the same thing, though, where, I mean, you're right, where if you're a leftist, you love the sound of this. But if you're a conservative, and we just saw 6 people killed at Covenant, including children, and her focus is on trans rights, she has, and there is plenty of evidence that shows that she is just hostile towards children.
Yeah, I think she hates kids.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe Aftyn Behn hates children. I have not seen anything positive come out of her mouth in regards to children, other than, finding a way to take taxpayer money to pay for their food because, their parents aren't able to provide for them.
Yeah.
But she hates kids and wants them to, be injected with these cross-sex hormones, which aren't healthy. Take these hormone blockers, which aren't hormone blockers. Some of them are cancer drugs, for crying out loud. And she doesn't actually believe any of that is good. She just knows it puts her in a position of power with people.
Well, and it yes, that's number one. And number two, can somebody please tell me who amongst the right is, quote, threatening trans kids? Nobody's threatening trans kids. All the Republicans are saying is that wait till you're over 18. That's all you got to do. If you're 13 years old and you had to go through these trans procedures and the puberty blockers and hormones and all these other things that they want to do, which, when you're a little kid and you're growing up and you think that, that's the answer to your problems, and oftentimes it's not. It seems to me like the Republicans are actually trying to protect kids who, for whatever reason, brainwashing or otherwise, online or by their parents, believe that they're the opposite gender. I think the Republicans are trying to protect kids, and then they can make the choice when they are 18 years old. It is 6:15, time to check the roads on WTN.
South side, 2nd Avenue South at 40 westbound. We've got an obstruction on the roadway. Use caution. Watch for delays. Paragon Mills, Harding Place, a crash at 24. And Antioch Bell Road, there's an accident at 24. I'm Christy O'Brien.
As far as weather goes, a thick cloud cover with a couple of showers and a heavy thunderstorm. Thunderstorms can bring flooding, downpours, hail, and damaging winds. High of 71 today. All right, real quick. And I gotta be in my bonnet about this one. Because some of this stuff, it's like, whatever. You know, Democrats are going to do and progressives are going to do what they're going to do. But listen to this. Listen to what Aftyn Behn said about the patriarchal South. And you were talking about, you and I were talking about, Sam, about how she's got this hostility towards children.
My therapist always asks me to...
Anybody shocked that she's got a therapist?
I'd be shocked if she only had one.
My therapist always asks me to transcribe my dreams when they happen. Mm-hmm. And the recurring dream I've had is standing up in a cafeteria full of women. I don't know why I was there or whatever. And saying, I don't want children, I want power. And just screaming it at the top of my lungs.
She doesn't want children. She wants power. Now, she also says something that makes zero sense.
And for someone who grew up with my mother telling me never have kids because you'll have to give up a lot. You'll have to sacrifice professionally, which is what she was saying. And where I am now with seeing the consequences and the ramifications of women having kids and being in the political field and what they're able to achieve, because we don't offer, it's like the political field hasn't met the challenge of working moms. They really haven't.
Okay.
But also the deeply patriarchal structures that these women are involved with because they've chosen marriage and they've chosen to raise children. And I think in the South, it's incredibly difficult to shake those, especially if you've grown up here and that's all you've been told is the definition of success. The metric of success is how many kids you have, the bigger the square footage of your house, and where your kids go to school.
I don't know what South she's growing up in, but I'm just going to point out a few things. Number one, it's a personal choice. And I think, should we do a Daily Dan poll? Are we all okay if Aftyn Behn does not procreate?
I don't think we need to put that up for the poll.
Don't they? Girlfriend, if you don't want to procreate, please don't. But I would ask this question. Do you think that Marsha Blackburn, who very well could be our next governor, who has 2 children and 4 grandkids, explain to me how her choice to have children held her back? Pat Summitt, UT women's basketball coach and a legend. She had a child as well. Didn't hold her back. Beth Harwell, first female speaker of the Tennessee House. She's got 3 kids. Please, Aftyn Behn, in all your brilliance, tell me how having 3 children held Beth Harwell back. Now, there's a woman named Amy Hood. You may not have heard of Amy Hood, but she's from Nashville, and she was born and raised here in Middle Tennessee, went to school here in Nashville. She is the CFO of Microsoft. She is, by some would say, she is one of the most powerful business executives to come out of the state of Tennessee as the CFO of Microsoft. Amy Hood has 2 kids. Diane Black, of course, has 3 kids, former Tennessee congressman, woman, whatever. Now, she's from Baltimore, not the South. But the point remains, all of these incredibly accomplished, incredibly powerful women who also have children. And part of what she said, part of what Aftyn Behn said, was these women are actually part of the patriarchy. I mean, I would love to just, give maybe a 15-minute monologue dissecting all of this, but it's so nonsensical.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at the evidence.
It doesn't match reality. My mother had 4 children, 3 by birth, 1 by choice. One of the first things that she did as an attorney was adopt my older brother. And I will say, my mom had to face some old Southern white guys in the courtroom that didn't think her, tiny little self could make an argument in court, and she demolished them.
Mm-hmm.
So she went on to raise 3 kids, 2 of which are now in law school. She has put more families together than Aftyn Behn could break apart through adoptions and through custody battles, and she has always sought to try and unite people. It to me, it decries everything women like my mother, women like you have mentioned, have fought for when it comes to the workforce and when it comes to being seen as equals in their fields.
Well, and I think it all comes back to just, I think we all understand that Aftyn Behn hates children. That's why she is so passionate about abortion. She hates the South, which is why she always seems to be bashing the South at every turn. So I don't understand. And all of these videos are now coming out. All of this to say, do you think that this will impact the race for the 7th? I hope what all of this does is it brings attention not to the Democrats. I mean, we know that they're, blue no matter who. But I hope that this does inspire the people of the 7th. If you're, just feeling like Matt Van Epps isn't your guy, okay, well then vote against Aftyn Behn. That's what I would say. If Matt Van Epps, he's not doing it for you for whatever reason, I like him. I think that he could probably be sort of out there more. But, to be honest with you, I mean, Aftyn Behn's own words are burying her. So why don't you just sit back and talk about your policies, which is what Matt Van Epps has done everywhere, and let Aftyn Behn's past words, not only bury her amongst perhaps independents, but also if she's unwilling to admit that she'll defund the police, that could impact the vote of people on the left. But, if you're a conservative, just listen to what she says. Listen to what she says, and if you're not sold on Matt, well, then you got to be sold on Aftyn Behn. It would appear the 7th is a little closer for comfort. At least that's what some folks are saying. So just get out there and vote.
I had a thought about that. Part of the reason we have kids is to have a legacy, and you've got grandchildren at this point that you adore and you look at and you're wow, I'm so amazed at the things that he does. Having watched your own kids do that is power. That is a sense of peace. And she's going to make a cat breeder very wealthy one day. She's got to fill her house with some kind of love.
Well, I would say that she's 35. And all that I would say is that there's a lot of women who regret not having children. And so I would vehemently, and again, if you don't want to have kids, please don't. But that doesn't mean that women that have kids are part of the patriarchy, which is what she said about all of the very powerful, very successful women that I just mentioned that did find a lot of success and also had kids. I want to welcome on into the program Jonathan Fahey on the Newsmaker Hotline. Jonathan, always great to have you on. So I want to talk about a number of different things. And by the way, Congressman Scott Desjardins is coming up later on in the broadcast. I believe it's at 7:06. Jonathan, let me ask you, I've got a bunch of legal kind of questions for you. And because you are that highfalutin attorney with also some political expertise as well, you're the perfect person to talk about all this. So we were all really excited when James Comey and Letitia James, they were, the Trump administration going after them, the DOJ going after them. And now there is a U.S. attorney, or I should say a judge, has said that the appointment of U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan was improper. And so the federal judge basically is saying that right now, Lindsay Halligan is not the attorney, the properly appointed attorney, I guess, to go after the James Comey and Letitia James. Just walk me through this. What is the problem here?
So here's what happened. The judge dismissed the indictments against both James Comey and Letitia James, and the judge's ruling is based on basically the way Lindsay Halligan was appointed by Pam Bondi. Basically, the Attorney General has the ability to appoint a U.S. attorney for a period of, I think it's 6 months. During that time, usually the U.S. attorneys are confirmed by the Senate, and then they go on and serve as U.S. attorneys. But if they're not confirmed by the Senate, then the district judges have to then either, a lot of times, will just reappoint the person already appointed or appoint somebody new. They have to do that within 6 months. The Trump administration got the previous U.S. Attorney Eric Siebert was removed, and they appointed Lindsay Halligan after that, meaning the Attorney General did. And the motion to dismiss was saying, well, that's improper because the 6 months had already lapsed, and the Attorney General doesn't have the authority to appoint successive U.S. attorneys. So that's the issue here. So that the judge basically said she was not a legitimate U.S. attorney in terms of that. So therefore, the indictments she presented against James and Comey were then dismissed because she was the one that actually presented the indictments. So the bottom line is here, because you hear all this stuff about the indictments were dismissed, which is all true, but the government can re-indict these cases if they want to do it today under this ruling, or they can appeal this judge. If the government wins, the indictment gets reinstated. If the government loses, they can still re-indict both cases. So these cases, like I saw a statement from Jim Comey on TV saying the case basically went away and it's over. It's like, that's not true at all. The case is going to come back. It's just a matter of sort of what procedurally how it comes back. So right. There's a lot of interesting issues sort of constitutionally and other things at play. But the one sort of the big core point is the judge didn't rule at all on the merits of either case, saying they were innocent or these charges were not supported by evidence or anything like that. So I think a lot of the reporting on it might imply something more than really was there.
Well, yeah, the left will grab hold of the narrative. This is from ABC News. Because Ms. Halligan had no lawful authority to present the indictment, the federal judge saying, I will grant Mr. Comey's motion and dismiss the indictment without prejudice. So that means that it can come back. And I think that for the DOJ and Pam Bondi, so I guess here's my question. Was this federal judge correct, in your opinion, in saying that Lindsay Halligan was improperly appointed?
I don't think so. And this is, there's not a lot of law on this, but here's where I think the judge will get reversed. One, Pam Bondi, the fact that the appointment expires in 6 months, I think the reading saying the Attorney General can then appoint another U.S. attorney for another 6 months seems reasonable within sort of the constitutional framework that the executive branch appoints executive appointees, right? So that makes sense. So I think one of the big issues in President Trump's favor on this is the court's going to look at this appointment statute and say, wait a second, you can't have a system of government in which a federal court appoints executive branch employees, particularly the ones that are going to be appearing in front of them. It seems like there's so many issues there. So I think they will actually win on this, but I don't think it's something that there's not a lot of law on there. So ultimately how it unfolds is an unknown. So I'm not suggesting any bad faith on the part of the judge. But yeah, but the bottom line ultimately is they can bring it back. And you've heard some things out there about the statute of limitations and Jim Comey, because he was indicted right at the end of the statute of limitations. There's another federal statute that says once a case is dismissed, meaning an indictment's dismissed, the government has 6 more months to re-indict the case that are told from the statute of limitations, meaning they don't factor in, or if the case goes to appeal and the government loses, they have another 60 days at the sort of when the final order of that appeal is entered to indict the case. So all of these, the cases remain they're not alive. There's no current indictment, but they can be re-indicted and go back on the same track where they were. One
of the things that people are saying about Lindsay Halligan, the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney, is that she had no experience as a prosecutor. Will you help me understand? Because I know that, okay, even though she didn't have any experience as a prosecutor, she is surrounded by a whole bunch of attorneys as well, and working for her and so forth. And so, I don't know, in your opinion, was it a good move for the president to appoint Lindsay Halligan there in the Eastern District, or was there maybe somebody else that may have had more experience as a prosecutor? Like in the world of law, was she the right appointment in your opinion?
I think if the president thinks she can, fulfill his, policies and things like that the best, I think that makes somebody the right appointment. I don't think for that job, I mean, being the U.S. attorney, which is a lot of it is a leadership role, you don't necessarily have to be a prosecutor. I think the tricky thing is the U.S. attorney is typically not indicting cases, so that's something she had not done before. Doesn't mean she couldn't have, like you said, get some guidance and advice on how to do it along the way. I think one of the things that they were to sort of unwind this thing would have been, when Lindsay Halligan presented the indictment, if they had a career person in the grand jury with her as another prosecutor, I think this issue would have come out differently at the district court level. Ultimately, it probably doesn't matter how, it'll still kind of come out, still come back and get indicted again. So that's one of the things. But in terms of, who's the best person to carry out the policies, that's certainly a judgment call. And there are people with a lot of experience that wouldn't be particularly good. So
that's a great point.
As a lawyer, and I think she served as his lawyer. So, he values people he can trust, not only their guidance, but if you work with somebody and a lot of jobs in government or anywhere else are judgment is sort of the key, criteria for being successful. So if he thought she has the right judgment, temperament, and things like that, it would make it the right choice.
Jonathan Fahey is joining us on the Newsmaker Hotline. Jonathan, let me ask you this. Headline, Pentagon threatening to court-martial Democratic senator over the Refuse Illegal Orders video. We all know what this is. You had, I think, 7 or 8 of these Democrat senators that came out and told the military that if Donald Trump orders them to do something illegally, that they can not carry out those orders. And so now you have talk of a possible court-martialing of Arizona Senator Mark Kelly. So I find this whole thing fascinating. What they were thinking, I don't know. People are saying, on the one hand, this is a coup or an attempted coup. Other people are saying that this is their freedom of speech. Mark Kelly, perhaps they're talking about bringing him back into the military so that they could court-martial him. I find this all very fascinating. Give me your. I haven't spoken to you since this whole thing broke a few days ago. What is your opinion on all this? My opinion is this is really a new low from the Democrats, because on so many levels it's so bad, basically implying the orders they're currently following are unlawful, and that's clearly what they were doing. Which, by the way, and as you, Jonathan Fahey, as you know, just real quickly, they were asked. I mean, I think every single one of them was asked. Okay, so what exactly is the order that Donald Trump has given that has been illegal? And from Jason Crow to Mark Kelly and all these folks, none of them had any answer to that.
Yeah, that was the most revealing thing of it all, right? It just shows that their intentions were so bad to begin with, because they didn't think there were actually any illegal orders being issued, but they were more than comfortable implying them to try to create morale issues, disruption, people to defy orders, and also how does that affect our national readiness? With foreign countries and things like that. It is so beyond disgraceful, and it's funny how they're all walking it back, because I think they all know they really stepped in it here. But I think Mark Kelly is, one of these people. He uses his military service as sort of the shield to get away with really bad policies, and then falls back on it, because he basically endorsed an open border, even though he was an Arizona senator. So this is a guy that it's beyond disgraceful the way he plays. It's sort of a John Kerry-ish type of card that he plays. And yeah, he deserves it. And what they're probably not going to be prosecuted. One, they have a speech and debate clause immunity and things like that, but they should be called to task for this. And it is funny when you watch them on TV and they can't even answer it. And even the Democrat TV shows, I think, were pretty appalled by this one. I mean, Joe Scarborough and some of these other people were sort of like, what are you guys doing? And I think it was Ruben Gallego, the other Arizona senator, that was talking about how he had gotten the script. So this is a plan, a planned, sort of conspiracy, if you will, to undermine the military. But it's just so funny. It would be like, say, for example, somebody got on TV and says, if somebody at Senator so-and-so's office tries to make you do drugs or steal while you're on there, please don't do it. You don't have to follow Senator so-and-so's unlawful orders if he gives them. I mean, that's That's classic defamation. It's putting people in a false light, and that's what they're doing. And if somebody were to do that, they would get, outside of a world of privileges and immunities, you would get sued if you said that. If they try to get you to do this horrible thing at the office, we've got your back, and implies all these horrible things are going on at the office.
Well, the funny,
it's so beyond disgraceful.
The funny thing is, Trump has been saying that he's not threatening death towards these members. People are calling them the seditious six. And Pete Hegseth, of course, talking about how, and it's true, despicable, reckless, and false. If they ultimately, because you just said, and it is true, they now know that they've stepped in it. I have not looked up the backgrounds of these people, but I'm assuming a fair amount of them are lawyers. And this is also something that I'm sure was endorsed by the Democrat Party, the Democrat machine. So I guess you would have thought that they would have at least considered the fact that they could have been putting themselves in some sort of a legal peril, yet they did it anyway.
Yeah, you do wonder because, clearly this was vetted by lots of people in a coordinated effort. So it's like somebody should have sort of held up a flag and said, hey, this could be an issue here. But you do think it's sort of part of this overall Democrat policy of just simply subversion at every point, because they don't really have sort of these core Democrat policies anymore. So it's subversion with respect to ICE. Remember when, what was it, a few months ago, when everyone in the Democratic Party was trying to get arrested by ICE? That was the
yeah.
Sort of
I remember that. Yeah.
And so it's basically the same type of thing, right? Undermine the Trump administration as opposed to, which frankly, it's lazy and easy, right? Like it's easy to do things like that. It's hard to come up with policies that help people in a meaningful way. That takes sometimes some courage. It takes some serious thinking and serious people, and they don't seem like, they don't have that in the Democratic Party these days.
Do you think, so there's let's go into just some general political analysis. So Harry Enton had a polling, I think this was yesterday at some point, where he said that Donald Trump is, by and large, still more popular or as popular as he's ever been within the Republican Party. Now, he's lost some support among independents and so forth. But do you believe that? Just from how you've looked at the headlines, you've read the headlines, and you know that there's been, some consternation between America First and MAGA. So do you believe that President Trump is still as supported by the Republican Party as he was, a year ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago?
Yeah, I really do. And I honestly think he has more support, not just from the MAGA crew, but the establishment Republicans have, I think, by and large, come around to him. They might not agree on everything, but they see this sort of effectiveness on addressing issues. And even though he doesn't do it the way sort of some of the establishment types would do it, you can't really argue that he's effective in getting things done. So yes, I agree with it. I do think the concerning thing is the independents seem to not be supportive, but I think a lot of that is, government shutdown, a little uneasiness with the economy. And I think if the economy gets rocking and rolling at the beginning of, next year, people start feeling better and they're going to have more money in their pockets with the tax breaks and things like that. I think that part will change. And that's the most, for all of us, the most important thing is sort of your personal economic situation. And I think if that improves, the independents come back his way and come the Republicans' way.
We have a year to fix this. And you're right. I mean, this is something that I've been saying is once those tax breaks start coming into full effect next year, and I think people are going to have a lot more money in their pocket. And I do believe that a year is a long time in politics. And so I think that if the Republicans can figure out how to either agree to disagree or, figure out a compromise on some of these things. I mean, I very much disagree with Trump on the H-1B visa thing, but I also understand what he is saying about trying to or needing to import some talent. So, but I think that you're right, and I did say this earlier in the program, which is we can disagree on certain issues within the Republican Party. We can disagree on certain issues and not completely disconnect from Donald Trump. It just means that these are policy issues that we as a party need to figure out a solution for. It doesn't just, in my opinion anyway, some people may disagree, but in my opinion, I'm no longer going to support Trump just because I've got some issues with one or two of his policies. And we'll leave it there. Jonathan Fahey, as always, thank you very much for joining us here on Super Talk.